Hey, I'm Jeremy Hoyt with the Bottomless Faith Podcast. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. Hey, how do you know you totally forgiven someone? How do you know that you have totally released anger, bitterness, resentment, the whole gamut against a person that's offended you, just brought trouble into your life? Maybe they just rub you wrong. How do you know? Hey, in the comment sections below, would you please do this? Would you please share how you know you've totally forgiven someone? What are some of the evidences? What are the clues that you have totally released those feelings against a person? So please stick around for the end of the video. I have some evidences or some more clues to help us know if we've totally forgiven somebody. Hey, I've heard it before, and I know you've heard this before too as well. Somebody claims, I've forgiven this person. I pray for them every day. But yet when they speak of that person, it's smack. When they speak of that person, it's in a negative light. It's derogatory, it's belittling. And have they really have they experienced total forgiveness with the offense of that person? Has it really happened? Can you totally forgive someone and still speak toxicity over that person, negativity over that person's life? Can total forgiveness really happen when you enjoy it in the presence of other people, when that person is slandered in your presence and you just can't wait to chime in? You just can't wait to add to the story. Can you tell when forgiveness has happened and that you are no longer tempted to speak of that person in a light that belittles them? In fact, really, that's the evidence. You can tell that you've experienced total forgiveness when you're no longer tempted to speak evil against that person. So here's a test you can follow with your words. I love this. Is it helpful? Is it necessary? And is it edifying? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? And is it edifying? So we all know the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, and how his brothers were jealous because of him, because of that special treatment he got from his dad, right? Remember the coat of many colors. Joseph was a tattletale. He really was. And to make matters worse, Joseph revealed to his brothers in some dreams that he had, the interpretation of those dreams was that his brothers would one day be his subjects. They would all bow down before him. And so his brothers hated him. They totally hated him, despised him. So in the story of Joseph, as it continues, his brothers plotted against him. They tried to kill him. We know that. And then they threw him into a cistern. But then they saw an opportunity to make money. So they sold him into slavery. And there's more to the story behind that. But his brothers lied to their dad, and Joseph, saying that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. His brothers, again, they threw him into a cistern. Later, he would be falsely accused, right, in Potiphar's household, forgotten in prison for years. He thought his life was over, but God was up to something. God was up to something. So in the story of Joseph, we also learn that God would use Joseph to interpret dreams. And in a God moment, as we follow the story, after years of incarceration, Joseph is elevated to the governor of Egypt. Remarkable. He interpreted dreams for Pharaoh. God would use Joseph to help the entire world at that time walk through a famine and be saved through a famine. So through prison and his appointment as governor of Egypt, God was doing a great thing and working in Joseph's life. And here's the best thing about the whole story. God was working in Joseph's life to help him totally forgive. So here's the first clue that Joseph had totally forgiven. Here's that first clue. So Joseph has these two sons. And just before the 7 years of famine started, God gave Joseph these sons, and their names meant, God has made me forget all of my hardship, and God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Just think about that. Is it true? Do you think it's really happening that God had given Joseph total forgiveness? Think about that. Now, Joseph didn't really forget about what had happened. Who could? But he healed up from it. You should never forget. You shouldn't forget. You shouldn't forget. But we choose not to remember those offenses. There is a huge difference between that. So Joseph remembers his mercy. He then gives mercy. So if we want to be free, from feelings of vengeance, and we want to be free from feelings of bitterness and hateful feelings, think much of God's mercy. Forgive as God in Christ Jesus has forgiven you. Ephesians 4:32. I love Luke 7:47. Jesus says, who have been forgiven little, loves little. Whoever has been forgiven little loves little. Think about that. 7 years of abundance and famine took place just like Joseph said it would through the Lord. So Joseph's family was struggling back in the land of Canaan, their home, and they would die unless they would go to Egypt and get food, just like everybody else in the known world at that time. So Joseph's brothers appear before Joseph. They don't know it's him. Joseph does. And it's interesting. They had to go through Joseph in order to save their lives, to save the lives of their family, to get food. And when they first came into the presence of Joseph, again, he recognized them and he kind of treated them rough, but his brothers didn't recognize him. So then they came a second time, and this is very interesting. They came and they knelt before Joseph, again, not recognizing him, but Joseph cried. He says, it's me, it's me, it's me. And so when they saw this prince of Egypt was Joseph, and his brothers were afraid, and because they had wronged him. I mean, they're very superstitious anyway, and they had sinned and they knew it. Joseph had the power to destroy them. The ball is totally in Joseph's court. I mean, we kind of hope that our enemies, right, will be afraid of us. We want them to feel like the way we felt. We want everyone to know what they did to us, right? I mean, we want them banished from our world. Here's Joseph's opportunity to make it all happen. The ball's in his court. But because his heart had experienced total forgiveness, his heart that they had broken was filled up with love, and Joseph forgave them. What evidence do we have that Joseph had totally forgiven them? Total forgiveness. Do you want total forgiveness? Hey, Genesis 45, verse 1. Joseph could stand it no longer. There were so many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, out all of you. So he was alone with his brothers. Wow, that hadn't happened in a long time. Then he broke down and he wept so loudly the Egyptians heard it. And word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's court. What did Joseph do to show total forgiveness? Joseph refuses to let anyone know about the offenses of his brothers. Think about that. He has everyone outside of his family leave the room. Evidence of a heart experiencing total forgiveness. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother you even more. You are firm in your heart that nobody else knows about the offense. Think about that. Verse 3, I am Joseph. And he said to his brothers, is my father still alive? But his brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. Please come closer, he said to them. So they came closer. And he said again, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset. And don't worry, and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your life. So what does Joseph do to show that he totally has forgiven his brothers? He doesn't want them to be afraid of him. He doesn't want to punish them. Joseph doesn't want to count their sins against them. What's done is done, and now there's mercy. Does it sound like Joseph is free? Are you free? He's done keeping score of his brother's offenses. Does it bother him? They're there. I mean, he smells their smells, right? He hears the tones of their voices. He remembers those tones. He sees the smile on their faces, the familiar faces, the same ones that plotted his demise. He's free. He's free. And here's another thing. Later on, he declares that God was up to something. God was up to something through this. God would save his family and the future Israelite nation and the family that would bear the Messiah. Men and women, trust the sovereignty of God. Trust the sovereignty of God with difficult people. He brings them your way, right? He has a purpose behind them, right? Go with it and let difficult people serve the purposes of God, namely to help you grow. Think about that. So Joseph would pour out blessing and kindness to his brothers later on in verses 10 and 11, if you want to read that. And he would invite them to move to Egypt and experience the best of the land, the best of the farmland. Friends, and finding total forgiveness, do this. Remember God's mercy over your life. Extend it. People that have experienced total forgiveness, they are no longer compelled to speak smack, right, about them or speak of them in a negative light. They're not consumed with making sure everyone knows about the offense. No longer concerned with getting vengeance or making them afraid of them. You trust God's sovereignty, that God was behind it all. and he's forming you into the image of Christ. I mean, there's a reason. There's good things behind it, right? And now you're focused on blessing that person. Now you're totally focused on blessing. Hey, experience total blessing. Please comment below how you know someone has experienced total forgiveness. Please do that and experience mercy for yourselves. Love you, friends. Bye.